Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast. Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down, falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, June 24th, 2019, and this is episode 170 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and we are back. Not only myself, but Eric Nathanson from Georgia after a little 2-week absence due to my vacation plans. But how'd you hold up over those 2 weeks? Did you miss me?
Oh, yeah, horribly, especially knowing you were in Hawaii. I was just jealous.
Feeling sorry for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how you handled paradise. I was only dealing with a feels like temperature of 110. The 80 degrees and the breeze you got probably weren't too bad. But I hope you had fun in Hawaii. I hope you enjoyed yourself on a family vacation. And you came back to some, I guess, winning Giants baseball.
Yeah, I had a great trip. I didn't watch basically any baseball. It was on the TV a couple of times at the bars. Never tuned in on my iPad or iPhone. I just watched highlights and looked at box scores and read articles, that kind of thing, and kept up on Twitter. One of the things about traveling to Hawaii is that it's 3 hours behind the West Coast, and so when the Giants were playing the West Coast games, they were starting at 4 in the afternoon or even earlier sometimes. So we're usually by the pool or on the road or doing something, not even going to dinner yet. So it really didn't have a chance to watch those games. But, hey, I think most of you would agree, when you're in Hawaii, your first priority is not watching Giants baseball. Hey, look, we love the Giants. I love the Giants, but I'm paying a lot of money to be out in Hawaii, so I'm going to be doing other stuff and catching up on the highlights later. But that said, yeah, I guess they didn't do too bad. In fact, 7-5 since our last recording. I did pretty well while I was gone. 3-4 on the road trip, which wasn't spectacular, but they definitely salvaged what happened after L.A. So they're now 33-43, 10 games under 500. They are still in last place in the NL West, 19 and a half games back of the Dodgers. Second worst record in the National League, just ahead of the Marlins, and still 4 games back of San Diego for for fourth place. In the NL West, we both know where this team is. I just keep hoping for some sort of miraculous streak where, over 2 or 3 weeks they're playing, like 700-800 ball. They go like 10-5 or 12-4 or something really remarkable to get them a little closer to 500 so you don't feel so bad about this season, maybe more to the middle of the pack, if you will. They're just so far outside the pack right now, Eric. It's hard to watch this team, not in the sense of the stories and the fun things that we're going to talk about with like Alex Dickerson and Yaz and others, but just as a whole product. It's hard. It's really hard.
They're on the precipice of being 20 games back in June, which is just impressive. That's quite the impressive achievement. But June is kind of the opposite. They're 11-9 so far in the month of June. So, like, the June swoon they always hit doesn't seem to be, hitting them in the face as much this year. The Rockies are playing good ball, so that could change over the next few days. And they could be 20 games back after today since Kershaw is pitching for the Dodgers. But they haven't been bad lately, and the guys that have there's been unexpected places for guys to step up. There's been good contributions from. You mentioned Dickerson. You had guys like Garcia step up when Posey was on the DL. Like, some of the young guys have stepped in and done some things and at least made it interesting for us to watch. Even after Duggar went down with an injury, the outfield has been fun to watch all weekend. So they haven't been bad baseball. They really haven't. They've been entertaining games for the most part, except those like 3 games that got steamrolled in LA.
Yeah. Now, overall, the product's been much better. Certainly not exactly where we want it, but much better. And, one of the things, like you just mentioned, they got steamrolled by the Dodgers. And at this point, they were lucky to take 1 out of 4, to be honest. And one of the reasons they're 19.5 games back is the Giants are 10.5 or 10 games under 500. But if they were in, the NL Central or the NL East, they would not be 19.5 games back, okay? The Dodgers are playing out of their flippin' minds right now. They're 54-25, by far the best team in all of baseball by like 4 games or so over the Twins. That's a .684 winning percentage. They're 34-9 at home. I mean, that's,
wow.
And 21-11 versus teams with a winning record, and 20-16 on the road. So, I mean, the Dodgers, obviously, they've won 6 divisions in a row, years in a row. They're going to clearly win their 7th here. They're 13 games up on the Rockies, so I don't think there's any question the Dodgers are going to win the West for a 7th consecutive year. But of course, as we keep noting, they keep falling flat in the playoffs. But they made it to the 7th game of the World Series last year, Eric. This is a team that keeps knocking on the door for the crown, and I at some point they're going to break through, and that's what kind of concerns me, because this is definitely a juggernaut team this year.
Well, I mean, maybe they're the baseball version of the Buffalo Bills, and they'll just keep getting there and falling flat on their face. I mean, it's entirely possible. It was funny that you bring this up because Affelt was getting into it with Dodger fans on Twitter recently, and they were like trying to say, you should come to Dodger Stadium and talk that, and he made a good joke that he can't because his 3 rings are too shiny for Dodger fans.
I saw that.
And you got to think that the Dodgers are once again poised to just, like you said, run away with it. And that's why Colorado, Arizona, and San Diego I actually think are going to be tough for the Giants this year, because they all seem to be fighting for second place. They're all within like 2.5 games of each other right now. Colorado's 40-37, but the Padres are 38-40. That can flip over the span of even a week. Oh, yeah. So the other 3 teams are really going to be in a dogfight. And then the Giants are just, they'll have a chance to spoil some stuff this year and at least be competitive. And that's what they've been, is competitive, except for, I'm not trying to harp on those 3 games at Dodger Stadium. I guess 2 of them where they really got steamrolled. But, I mean, they had like 11 hits total and had given up 20 runs at one point. It was just – the difference in the first place good ball club in the division and last place team was just stark. It was just a very stark reminder of where the Giants are at compared to where the Dodgers are at. And we hope to see the Giants get there someday. And like, I said, they've shown flashes of it. When we go back, since we recorded last, the 2 games right after we recorded, they went on a 4-game winning streak. It was the longest winning streak of the season for them. It was the 4th time that they had won 3 straight, but they finally got that 4th win before losing the last game of the series to Milwaukee. But they swept 2 at home from San Diego, and then they won 2 of 3 against Milwaukee, and could have probably won that Sunday game too. Had a few different breaks going their way, and it seemed like they were playing the best baseball of the season they had at home all season long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was funny. So they sweep San Diego at home. They won 2 of 3 versus Milwaukee at home. So everything's looking pretty good. They go into LA and they win their first game. So you're like, man, these guys have won 5 out of 6 now. The Giants are just banging. Maybe we can split or even take 3 out of 4 in LA. And then it was just 9 runs in 3 consecutive games. 9-9-9. They got waxed those first 2. That last game, though, I did see some of the controversy on Twitter, and as a dedicated Giants fan, I admit I did not do my homework in this particular spot, because now that you're reminding me. So what happened in the 9th inning? Because I know the Giants scored 4 runs to make it a 9-8 game, and there was some controversial call at third base on a force play that I guess New York did not overturn or something. So can you walk me through that?
All right. So after the Giants had already scored 4 runs in the 9th inning, I believe, with nobody out, Tyler Austin comes to the plate with runners on first and second. And for some reason, Tyler Austin, who can literally change the course of the game with one swing of the bat, he is asked to bunt. And he does, but the runner gets thrown out, I believe it was Vogt, at third base. Mm-hmm. And replays, he called him out on the field. And replays showed that he hit the bag before the ball hit the back of the glove. It was not even a question on multiple replay angles. And New York did not overturn the call. They stuck with out. And so the Giants had first and second with 1 out. Buster Posey hit a fly ball. that would have scored a run had it been, bases loaded or second and third. And then Brandon Belt hit a fly ball that also would have scored a run. So they would have probably at least tied the game. But that's what ifs and buts, butterfly effect. It might not have gone that way. Right. But the bottom line was they were screwed. He was absolutely safe at third. You could see it clearly. New York did not overturn it. And the main point that Bochy and Posey made after the game were, nobody in New York gets held accountable. The umpires at the stadium, they're held accountable for their actions, but we don't know who the umpire is making this decision in New York. They only reveal who the replay umpire is during the playoffs. So it's kind of frustrating to know that a faceless, nameless person, upheld a call that was wrong all the way across the country. And I understand their frustration, and it did, kill the rally. Like I said, 2 fly balls followed, and the game was over. So it kind of gives the Giants a what-if scenario, and with the way they were charging back, they really had that shot in the arm. They thought they could win the game. But I do go back to Bochy bunting in the first place and think it was a dumbass move. Right. But they did get screwed on the play. That's literally neither here nor there. They did get screwed on the play because he was absolutely safe at third base. So
yeah, so I didn't know the context of the situation, but I did see the replay and the photo freeze frames of the moment that Vogt's foot clearly was making contact with the bag, and the fact that the ball was still not in the glove. So just to my eye, going through Twitter a little bit and seeing some of the clips and some of the frame grabs, he absolutely appeared safe. So yeah, again, without watching the game and without hearing all the commentary, and I just read some articles about Bochy and Posey saying there's no accountability to New York, I do question, I wonder why they would not have overturned that, because they only overturned with clear, incontrovertible evidence, and it seemed to me that was clear and incontrovertible. So why didn't they overturn it? I guess that's a question that no one really knows the answer to.
They hid behind the inconclusive. They hid behind, and that was another point. I don't remember which one of them hammered on. They hid behind it was inconclusive for us to overturn. And it sounds like a lot of the replays are falling back on that. Instead of fully overturning it or fully confirming stuff, they'll say, it's inconclusive, so the call on the field stands, which is almost like a safety net now for the umpires. And some brother in New York has got their back, and it's frustrating because, all the errors and all the mistakes that the players and the umpires on the field are there for everybody to see. But this guy sitting in New York looking at 7 screens at the same time, there's no accountability for him. So as a team that was gaining momentum and feeling good coming out of LA, it was really like a step on the throat moment, like, oh, damn, Giants got checked. And it was almost like MLB checked them. And so I understand the chip on the shoulder and frustration out of the team. Right. It was they were roaring back. They really were, and they showed that with the way they played in Arizona.
Yeah, well, they score 8 against the Dodgers in that game. Then they obviously ripped the Diamondbacks for, I guess, 18 runs in the first 2 games of that series. So yeah, for the offense for 3 games there, it was looking like it was firing on all cylinders. And they take those first 2 games in Arizona. The first one, I believe the score was 11-7 or something like that. But one of Zaidi's moves, and this is one thing I wanted to refer to with the Dodgers series, is not only all the Dodgers talent that they've had most recently, including some of the young up-and-comers, but also Max Muncy's and all these other guys that are having, Jock Peterson and others that are having great years. The fact that they walked off the Rockies 3 consecutive games with 3 different rookies hitting home runs. What? That's never been done in Major League history, not even back-to-back games. And they did it 3 games in a row. Those are all product of Zaidi as well. So it's interesting, and I think you just have to really hold out hope that Zaidi knows what he's doing. And I know that he cannot produce instant results. That's just not possible with this roster. You can't. He hasn't even pulled a major trade yet, which may happen with a Bumgarner or Will Smith, and we'll get to that. But he's pulled some minor trades, and we've talked about this before. We're kind of like playing poker. He's built his stack, and he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger chips to hopefully trade up, just like playing the stock market. And I think he's honestly overall in a short period of time done as much or more than I could have ever expected in this short, brief history. I mean, we're talking about getting, Kevin Pillar and some of these new young guys that are coming up, and I would say in particular, he did trade with the Padres for Alex Dickerson, which has worked out for the first few games. Guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's the savior. How many left fielders have the Giants gone through since 2007? A million.
How many have they gone through just this year? It's like 11 or 12 already.
I mean, the guy's 29 years old. He's a journeyman. I get it. I'm not saying he's the solution. But what I am saying, now Mike Yaztremski too, grandson of Carl Yaztremski, there is a possibility that he could leverage some of these guys and maybe Smith and or Bumgarner and these future draft picks, because they picked up Hunter Bishop. They have a couple of other guys in the minors that were pre-Zaidi that are looking pretty good right now. So, I mean, I'm just hoping here in a couple of years that some of these decisions and these trades do come to fruition. And I think you just can point to his success with the A's and his success with the Dodgers with the current stock, that, I don't think the guy's going to completely strike out with the Giants. I think he's going to have some pretty good successes here.
It's neat. It's great that you point out about the rookies and being Zaidi finds, because it just shows his track record still laying itself behind him, which is good for the Giants to see. It's almost feeling like a Theo Epstein situation between when he was in Boston and then when he came to Chicago, and he kind of turned things upside down. I'm granted Zaidi never won the World Series in LA, thankfully, but
he's close.
Right, you can see the seedlings, and I think a guy like Pilar is here as a stopgap, and he's going to be flipped in one of the deals that they end up making. Sure. And guys like Yaztremski and Dickerson are making that possible by playing better and showing that they can have a little bit of depth in the outfield compared to Connor Joe and Michael Reed to start the season. Like, look at that. I had to search for his name.
Oh, man, that was close. You're Michael Reed.
Yeah. It was like
Good job.
2.5 months ago. Almost 3 months ago. Thank you. And that's how bad it's been, is they had to improve from such a thing. And I think, from things like Dickerson and Yaztremski is up to 5 bombs now. He's starting to stretch it out and hit the ball for power a little bit more. They've given them more leverage in these trade situations so that they can flip a guy like Pilar. And who knows, maybe they'll try to flip a guy like Longo and keep getting younger and younger. And from what, you mentioned all the moves Zaidi's made already, I don't think anything he does over the next, month and a week should surprise us at all.
Yeah. So Alex Dickerson, a lot of people were like, who the hell is this guy? Well, he started the year with the Padres. Prior to that, he had Tommy John surgery, so he was out of the majors for a couple of years. Overall, he's 29 years old. He's no spring chicken, so I don't know if he's going to develop into any significant talent. But if you look at his history, he hasn't been horrible. He has 292 career at-bats over 3 years in the majors. He's hitting 257, which, by the way, is better than the entire Giants roster right now. Okay, he has 11 career home runs and 48 RBI, which translates to 162 games as 16 bombs and 71 RBI. So when you look at those numbers, you're like, okay, that's spread over multiple years. You can't say that's going to be who he is. But if he's anywhere close to that, let's say a 250 hitter, and, if he played a full season, he hits 12, 13 home runs and knocks in 60, that is a serious upgrade to anyone they have right now. So let's just see how he does. But clearly in the first 2 games, he just went bonkers with 9 RBI, which I guess set a San Francisco record for most RBI in a Giants uniform debut. He almost tied Jeff Kent and Jack Clark's total RBI for a 3-game series. The record is 11, held by both of those two guys. So he didn't have any RBIs in the last game of the series, but regardless, he's doing something that very few other Giants have done, and this is the only audio highlight I have this week, but I figured it's worth a shot.
And you can watch Alex Dickerson really use it. Plus, it's fun.
High drive, right center field. It is out of here. He's making friends, folks. Oh, my goodness. How about that?
Welcome to San Francisco, Mr. Dickerson. We've been waiting for you. Oh, talk about lighting up a bench. That man is psyched. 29 years old, 2 years on the DL, and he's looking for opportunity.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So it wasn't in that clip, but later when he was catching fire, I'm sure some of you listeners have heard it, but the Giants bench started yelling, "Dick, Dick, 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 Dick," which is just fantastic. I love it. I want to hear more Dick. I don't think I've ever said that in my life.
It was funny how it just like lit them all up. They all turned into 12-year-olds, and they felt like they could just cheer, and it was good to see the Giants having fun. I happened to be flipping in and out of that and another game at the time, and I switched to it right when the grand slam happened, and it was kind of like, wait, what the, like, that's not supposed to happen. These are the Giants. And for, a couple of days, they felt like a different team in Arizona. This is the same Arizona team that scored, 18, 25, 35 runs on the Giants, just a couple weeks ago.
Series,
yeah, but for some reason, the Giants are playing well in Arizona this year. They seem to be scoring runs and being competitive, and Dick led the way over the weekend. It's no coincidence. The only game they didn't win, he didn't have any, offensive production. Imagine if Dick had just driven in a run on Sunday. They wouldn't have had to go to extras, and they wouldn't have lost that game.
Yeah, speaking of which, the Giants still do not have a 3-game sweep this year. They have a couple of 2 games against the Blue Jays and the Padres, but I never consider those sweeps. They call them sweeps. No. They're not sweeps. It's 2 games. It's not a sweep. Yeah, it's frustrating because they had another opportunity, one of rare opportunities this year to complete the sweep. And Sean Anderson pitched a hell of a game, to be honest. 6 innings, 2 runs, no problems there. He had a couple shaky innings, but he got out of jams. There was one inning in which, who was it? I guess it was Jones, right, who led off the inning, and he struck out, and it was a wild pitch, and he made it to first. And sure enough, I was like, okay, he's going to score. He's going to score. Yeah. And he certainly did. And so that was made up, however, later when he came out of the game and Marana came in with the bases loaded and nobody out. And you're thinking, all right, how many are they going to put on the Giants this inning? The game's probably going to be over. And he throws one in the dirt, and you're like, oh, my God, he just gave him a run. And that thing ricocheted so hard off of it was such a wild pitch. It actually benefited the Giants because it ricocheted off that plexiglass behind home plate. Came right back to Vogt, where he turned around and almost kind of half-heartedly jogged to the runner coming down the line, who kind of was like, oh, crap, I'm out. And he just politely tagged him for the first out, and then he got the next 2 guys. So they got out of that gem. So it kind of tit for tat, right? They gave up a run in a weird way, but they kind of got saved later. The frustration was obviously the offense. I think they only mustered, 4 hits yesterday? So that was a big issue, probably the number 1 issue. But then you come into the 11th inning or the 10th inning, and Melanson comes in, and I know his overall stats, he's still under a 4 ERA, but overall he's looked very, very inconsistent and hit very hard his last few outings, even a lot of atom balls. He had no control. And he had no business being out on the mound. And he gave up a hit, 2 walks to load the bases, and went 3-1 on the next guy. So I thought he was going to walk in the winning run. He almost hit him with the first 2 pitches, by the way. In fact, on the second pitch, it just misses the guy's elbow, and he has an elbow guard on. You actually see him in the replay kind of sort of keep his elbow out, but not totally. And then when it didn't hit him, you see him go, damn it. Like he was trying to get hit, but not be obvious about it.
He didn't care. Yep.
So
that's the guy that gets hit a ton. Yeah, that's the guy who gets hit a ton too. That Locastro guy who got hit 3 times in that 18-run game. Right. And your point about Melanson is dead on. He went from being somebody we praised early on to kind of lately. It's like, oh man, he's coming into high leverage situations when he doesn't need to be.
No, it's just frustrating because then, he's in the driver's seat and it's a 3-1 pitch and he has to groove it and, he laces it down the line for a game-ending hit. But, yeah, you watch Vogt set up and he's not even close to the target. And it was just frustrating because I know their bullpen was taxed and a lot of people were complaining on Twitter, of all people, why Melanson? Well, you know what? It could have been anyone who gave it up. But part of it was that he pitched the night prior. So it was a little surprising for him pitching within like 12 hours of his last appearance, but as the way it goes, who knows if the Giants would have won the game anyway. It could have just taxed their bullpen for another 4 innings before they lost, and they would have been even more depleted for this week coming in.
Yeah, that's true, because they don't have a day off until July 4th. So This is their longest stretch of the season. I believe it's 17 days where they don't have an off day, and they were cognizant of that to start that LA series. They really even to start the Milwaukee series, they really tried to rest certain guys like Smith and Watson and keep them out of games if they could. And like against Milwaukee to start that homestand, to end the homestand but start this stretch, they weren't going to use Will Smith on one of the days, and then Bochy relented and used him because they needed him. And so they've already been trying to work the bullpen. So this is going to be a stretch where they get taxed. I would not be shocked to see the bullpen give up more runs over the next week and a half.
Yeah, and guess who goes tonight?
For who, the Giants?
Yeah.
Pomeranz?
Yes. So get ready, bullpen.
Yep,
They're coming in the third.
Yep. After
We'll get to him
Pomeranz throws
later.
150 pitches to get there.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, overall, successful couple of weeks. Just a couple of headaches and thorns in the side where the week really could have been spectacular. But if the Giants keep pulling out 7 and 5 2-week periods, they'll eventually chip away back to 500. So we'll take it for right now. It's better than
December.
Going
They'll get
3
there
and 10.
by December. Yeah.
By December, they'll be 500. I like that. That should be our webpage slogan. They'll be at 500 by December. Okay. Well, anyway, quick stat check. I know it can be depressing, but I still think this gives a good pulse to the team despite the standings and where they are. But the Giants just have never been that bad in run differential, but they are just atrocious this year. Worst in the National League by far. They're at minus 90 now. Obviously, the Dodgers series didn't help that too much. The problem is that they keep the games the Giants win are the 1 and 2 run games. The games that they lose tend to be by a lot. By more than 1 or 2 quite often. And so that run differential really expands in that regard. Again, we talked about this. No room for error in these games. So the ones that they play to near perfection, they squeak out 1 or 2 run victories. The ones where they are sloppy with the ball and the pitching blows up, boom, they lose 9-2. That's just the way the Giants go these days. And so that produces this massive run differential. The Dodgers, on the other hand, are flipping insane right now. Let's see, I had it 133 plus. That's incredible, everyone. I mean, they're on pace for over a 260 run differential for a season. I mean, this is historic stuff, and no one's even close to them in the National League. It's plus 59 by the Cubs. So they're more than doubled what the Cubs have done. And that's crazy. And even in the American League, 105 by the Twins is astounding, but that's still, 20-something runs behind the Dodgers. So they're putting it to everyone, and the Giants are still 18 or so runs behind the Pirates, who have a minus 72. It's hard to compare the American League because, they score more runs, because like Detroit's minus 142 right now. So
yeah, theirs is like totally out of whack. Yeah, and I think Kansas City is not so good either, and Baltimore might not be good. I agree. It's easier.
181 for Baltimore, and only 59
Right.
for Kansas City, even though they have the second worst record in the American League.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, they're like the Marlins. They're like the Marlins of the AL, because the Marlins, obviously, if the Pirates and Giants are worse, the Marlins are like third worst in run differential in the National League.
Yeah,
and
70.
It's weird that you kind of wish the Giants were more like the Marlins, because the Marlins do win some of those games. Like they scored a ton of runs in one game. That it took until this Milwaukee series for the Giants to score 8 runs in a home game. Yeah. I mean, that's their high this season, is 8 runs in a home game. They scored 8 runs at Dodger Stadium 4 days later. They scored 11 runs in Arizona the next day. So.
And the Dodgers scored 9 runs 3 consecutive games. So
yes, which they can do, but the Giants can't. There's no way they can do it. They can put together the 9, the 11, and whatever the hell they had on Saturday, and then they'll score 2 runs on Sunday on 4 hits. Yeah. And but they're still that's why they have one of the best records. The run differential, they should have like 4 worse wins based on the minus 90, and their record should be worse. Plus, I had a point. Damn it.
Well, no, it's true. If you look at their expected win total, I do believe it's around 4 or 5 fewer wins than where they are based on just run differential. While the Marlins, who have 20 more a run differential that's 20 runs better than the Giants at minus 70, are 16 games under 500. So, and the Giants are 10 games under 500. So it's a little bit of an oddity. So when the Giants lose, they lose big, but when they win, they squeak it by.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's what it was. They're 11-9 in June, but they're being outscored 92-91.
There you go. There's a big point right there. So anyway, run down the stats. Of course, they're last in the major leagues in batting average and on-base percentage at 224 and 291. Second to last in the majors in OPS and slugging. Second to last in the NL in runs and home runs. Last in the NL in stolen bases. Not that that matters much these days in this game. They're 12th in the National League in ERA. Again, this is I've been mostly depressed about. We're used to the Giants' offense not being good for the last several years. Even in the last couple of World Series they won, their offense was just middle of the pack at best. But they just have stellar pitching year in, year out. And certainly not worse than average. And this year, it's just absolutely tanked. Their ERA is 12th in the National League at 4.68, and their batting average against is a 257. So that's not good. And the runs given up in the first inning is still at about 1. It's at 0.99. And it's actually, I found this interesting. They're giving up on average 1.15 runs in the first inning while on the road. So... Yeah, so on the road, they're actually doing much worse, even though their road record is actually better than their home record this year. In 2018, as a comparison, which was also a bad team, they gave up 0.59 runs in the first inning on average. So they're close to doubling that total, and that's what puts them behind the 8 ball so many times.
That road thing is weird because, they get to bat before the other team does. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? That makes it even weirder. It's not like the opponent is jumping out and surprising them. Like, everybody's had a chance to settle into the game by then.
I know.
God, that's so weird.
It's really weird. And when you tally up the whole season, opponents have scored in the first inning 46.5% of the time. That's crazy. So in almost half of their games, their opponent is scoring in the first inning. That's like, what? It's like, you're already giving up 1 or 2 runs in the first inning half the time.
Yeah, you're playing from behind constantly. That's the slogan of the 2019 season: playing from behind constantly, because it feels like every game teams are getting up. That's why when they do go on these winning streaks, or this 4-game winning streak, they scored first, I think, a couple times, but against Milwaukee, they were able to come back even when Milwaukee showed some punch. Yeah. So it was good to see that kind of life, but it only sustains for so long because they just consistently can't do that.
Absolutely. So, talking about who's hot and who's not. So, who's hot? Got to go with Dick. Dickster. Dick. So for the 3-game series, he was 5 for 12 with 2 doubles, a triple, a home run. In that first game, by the way, he had 6 RBIs. He only missed the cycle by a double, and in the very next game, he rips 2 doubles, which is pretty awesome. So he had the 2-game cycle, sort of, and he had 9 RBI for the series. Of course, all that in the first 2 games. Just a real good shot in the arm. We'll see what happens. I mean, I expect this guy to go 1 for his next 20, to be honest. But hopefully he does something. Kevin Pillar is finally coming around after the beginning of the season when we were sending him all those praises. His last 10 games, he's hitting .410 with 3 bombs and 9 RBI. So that's really great. And I think his batting average is up to 240-something on the year now instead of 210 or 215. So this is good to see.
It's a showcase. Yeah, it's a showcase. I told you, I want to see him get flipped. I don't think he fits in any long-term plan, especially because Pillar has no plate discipline whatsoever. No. He can't take a walk. He can't help himself. He swings at high pitches, low pitches, everything. He doesn't care. He just wants to put the ball in play. And that does not... Yeah, that does not fit what the Giants of the future are going to look like. So I really love that he's on a tear, so he's showcasing himself right now. Plus, comes at a good time with Duggar being on the 10-day IL. I don't remember with what, but it's not serious.
Right. Yeah, no, he's hitting 253 now in the season, and he actually leads the Giants in terms of qualified players in all Triple Crown categories. First player to get to double-digit home runs yesterday, by the way. 10 home runs. It's pretty bad. 37 RBI leads the team, and of course 253 leads the team. So he's your Triple Crown leader for the Giants, guys, with those just mind-boggling numbers.
Wait, 253 leads the Giants in batting average, yet their pitching staff is giving up a 257 batting average.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, you have Pablo's hitting 288, but he doesn't technically qualify. I'm using qualified players, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, holy crap, this is not good.
Sorry, that just struck me. I was like, wait a second.
But it also tells you how good Pablo's doing because he's not qualified. He has 108 fewer at-bats than Pillar, but he only has 1 fewer home run and only 11 fewer RBI. So a per at bat ratio, Pablo's clearly leading this team in all of that. His OPS leads the team.
Ruth.
Slugging leads the team. On base percentage, leads the team. Tied with, vote doesn't really count yet, 85 at bats. So yeah, I mean, Pablo's been having a hell of a year, and I'd personally like to see him start more, just to see what happens. And I know he gets his spot starts, and I know they're paying what's his face so much money right now, but see, I don't even want to remember his name.
That's what I'm saying. Seriously, this Longoria trade, and I hate that we're gonna go off on this, but it's really been a topic of discussion lately. It's gonna be one of the worst trades that the Giants have ever made. What were they thinking with this trade? Longoria himself got kind of hot over the last week, but he hit 333 or something like that. But he doesn't hit bombs. He's not consistently making contact. He's taking strikes. He's swinging at balls. I mean, it's going to be the worst trade. Bobby Evans really, really screwed the story. This is why Farhan has a tough job, because he needs to.
He can't clean up from these mistakes. He has to. He can't trade Longo away. They
got rid of big mistakes.
Well, I guess McCutchen was only a 1 year deal, so that's different. But yeah, Longo was just such a long-term deal, and we talked about it on the show. We were like, "What are you thinking? The guy's on the backside of his career. Why are you giving him that much money for that long? That makes no sense. Makes no sense." And here we are. This is what we're seeing. And to think that he's only going to get worse with age, right? So he's not going to even produce these numbers, as low as they may be, the next couple of years. He's just going to be a liability for the payroll. It's a sad thing. And so yeah, Zaidi has definitely got his work cut out for him. Anyway, Mike Yaz, of course, I thought this was an interesting comparison with his grandfather, Carl Yaztremski, of course, the Hall of Fame Red Sox player. I looked at his stats, and Mike has 94 plate appearances. So I went through Baseball Reference and kind of rounded off by game, where Carl was closest to 94. And so it was 96 plate appearances. And this was in 1961, his rookie year. He had no prior Major League experience to 1961. He played a full year in the bigs. So here's how their stats compare. Just 2 plate appearance difference. Mike is hitting 244. Carl was hitting 227. Mike has 5 bombs. Carl had 3. Mike has 13 RBI. Carl had 15. Mike has a 751 OPS. Carl has a 646. So, not saying, I'm just saying.
I mean, that's fun. It's fun. Having 5 home runs has been a nice, pleasant surprise. He's got that kind of long stroke where if he runs into one, it's going to go. I think it was Friday or something that he hit one.
The little guy swings hard. Even in yesterday's game, I watched the whole game. And watching his at-bats, I mean, he came close on a couple. He really puts that weight into it. I'm bigger than him. And he's got good bat speed, and he's got quite the uppercut, which, yes, can be a hole, but like you said, when he runs into it, he can run into it.
Yeah, I think he'll put 1 or 2 in the water this year if he stays on the roster.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you have Reyes Moranta, who escaped that magical bases loaded situation yesterday. His last 10 and a third innings pitched, he has not given up a run. So even though he has an adventure every time, the results speak for themselves. And then, of course, Will Smith has just been spectacular this year. Perfect 20 for 20 in save situations this year. And over his last 14 appearances, he has 13 and 2/3 innings pitched, only giving up 1 earned run while striking out 24, only allowing 6 hits, a 128 batting average against, and having 9 saves in those 14 appearances. So he has just been as close to a lock and a guarantee as you can get. He has just been stellar, and I think his trade value is higher than Madison Bumgarner right now. For 2 reasons. One, his stellar stats, but Mad Bum has really been declining this year. And there are some stats out there, including the percentage of hard hit balls per Stats LLC. It's like 42% of hit balls are now classified as hard hit off of him. By far the highest in his career by a lot.
His highest.
So,
yep.
Yeah, these things are concerning. And if we know these things, of course the other teams know infinitesimally every single statistic that he's producing. And it definitely has lowered his trade value. But again, if you're one of those playoff teams, you got to think of what he brings to the postseason. And I think that's the intangible that the Giants can sell on?
Well, in the last week, MLB Trade Rumors came out with their top 50 trade list or whatever it was, and Will Smith was number 1, and Bum was number 2. Mm-hmm. And the point was brought up because there was also some rumors swirling between Bumgarner and the Twins. And part of that is Bumgarner is probably going to be traded to a team that already feels it's in a comfortable position to make October. And therefore, they don't have to raid the farm system to do it, because Bumgarner is a guy you are trading for to do things for you in October. Yes, you want him to win games for you, leading up to it. You want him to be in a good spot. But much like Verlander a few years ago when Houston traded for him, that's what Bumgarner's role is. And so a team like the Twins, who has a 10-game lead or a 9-game lead right now, who feels like they are going to make the postseason, that's what they would trade him for. So a team like that would, as opposed to a team like the Brewers might be looking at Will Smith, or the Cubs might be looking at Will Smith, because they're in a dogfight for the division title, and they need to lock down as many of those games as possible. And I know the Cubs just got Kimbrel, but there's been much speculation about Smith going to one of those teams and affecting that race somehow. Or maybe somebody like the Braves wants to make sure they lock down late innings. And that's why Smith's value is just so much higher, because he can go to a team that needs him down the stretch and in October, whereas Bumgarner's more likely looked at as a piece that is going to affect you most in October, and that's what you're trading him for. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why Will, tops the list, and I hope the Giants get a great haul for him. I love seeing how well he's pitching. I'm going to miss him. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the kind of guy to come back and rejoin the Giants, because he feels like there might be positive things. So I really do. I hope they get a haul for him, because Will Smith is just he's so dominant in some of these performances. It's almost not fair for the batters. He threw 6 pitches the other day and got 6 strikes. It was unbelievable. Like, these guys were off balance. They're swinging at pitches that are hitting him in the feet. It's almost unfair right now. It's so cool that the Giants have a pitcher like this right now.
Yeah, they had the big non-save situation lead, and D-Rod came in and absolutely shit the bed.
Yeah, that was it.
And then, Will Smith comes in and goes, 1, 2, 3, you're out. 1, 2, 3. It was like the Bugs Bunny cartoon,
Yep.
And it was just like, okay, he's the man. He's just like, whew, he is automatic, baby.
He really is, and he made his comeback with the Giants from Tommy John. He did all that work. So, he might be the type that wants to come back to San Francisco and kind of see a turnaround through. Yeah. I could totally see that happening, a la Aroldis Chapman a few years back with the Cubs and Yankees. Yeah.
No, that's good. It's definitely got trade value there. So let's talk about who's not. It could make the list a lot longer. Don't want to dwell on it too long. Joe Panik, his last 9 games, is only 5 for 33. And with him being in the leadoff position quite a bit lately, a $152 batting average isn't going to cut it. But yeah, that's just not good. That's just not good.
That's the best you can say. We miss old Joe.
Yeah. I realized I didn't put a name down here, but now I recall who it was. So Brandon Crawford, he's only hitting 214 on the year, but he's hitting 238 since our last recording. So his average has actually gone up from 210 to 214.
He had a good game the other day. That's all I can remember from him. I think he had 2 or 3 hits the same night Dickerson had a lot of hits.
Yeah. Still couldn't put in that he's hot at 238.
Nope.
Then Drew Pomeranz. Now, despite the foul, here we go. Here comes the air base. Woo! Despite giving up 0 earned runs in each of his appearances against Milwaukee and the Dodgers, both of them each went 5 innings. Even those 2 starts are included in his last 8. His ERA is still 10.05 over those 8 starts. That is sickening, man. Sickening.
He doesn't. I'm shocked to what he's turned into, and we'll see tonight if he can actually make it through 5 or 6 innings. I don't know. We've always talked about how picky he is, and he just goes at the corners, and I want to see him attack people and stop walking people. But that's how all the Giants starters right now. Just like you got Shark on here, his last 5 starts, he's got a 6.15 ERA. He's got those flashes, and then he gives up 3-4 runs in an inning, and it all goes right back to what it was. Yeah. So nobody on the staff is hot right now. Anderson's the one who's pitching best, I think, right now.
Yeah, no, Mad Bum was destroyed in L.A. Shark even got the win in Arizona, gave up, 4 and 5. Pomeranz had those 2 spectacular starts for him, no earned runs. We're like, whoa, this is the Drew we're looking for. And then he went right back to laying an egg, so against LA. Yeah, it's been a really frustrating season because when we talked at the beginning of the season, I thought this was a good pickup. I really did. I thought, he had won 17 games as recent as 2016 with the Padres, and in no way was I expecting anything like that. But I thought, hey, if this guy comes in and floats around 4, kind of does a Derek Holland kind of job, it's going to be just fine. You know what I mean? Sorry about that. My computer again. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I did not hear anything.
Yeah, I always forget my Mac's connected to my phone. That's funny. Anyway, it's been a frustrating year for the Giants and for the Drew Pomeranz in particular.
Yeah, Zaidi thought like you. I thought like you. I thought Palm would be something, but he hasn't been. And all you can do is hope he struggles through the season. And you hope the same with a guy like Holland. He's kind of not been pitching well since I think he's on the edge of losing his roster spot with the amount of moves Zaidi makes.
Yeah, in fact, I just saw him on Amy G's show yesterday. They were replaying one of the segments that they had recorded at the beginning of the season where she goes and spends a day with one of the players. And they went out and they did some go-kart racing, some mini golf. And he's such a fun guy. He has a self-deprecating sense of humor. He obviously does all those voices. He was really cute with Amy G. And to think that was before all of his problems and struggles this year. And to think of where his psyche is now. I have no idea. I haven't even heard of the guy. I haven't heard him speak. I haven't heard him interviewed in like 2 months. So right. I do kind of wonder where he is because he had that initial confrontation with the front office with the remarks he had about all the moves that Zaidi was making. And you haven't heard from him since. So I do wonder where his psyche lays right now, but his performance has not been any better on the field. So it's probably not very good right now.
No, he won't be a Giant past this season if he makes it through the whole season.
No, not at all.
Because the Giants, I was going to say,
yeah, go ahead,
Giants,
get right into that.
they don't have all-star players really. Will Smith, who we fawned over, is probably the only one who's going to make it because this year with the new all-star voting, they have a primary section and then they have an election of the top 3 vote getters at each position, and no Giant came in as the top 3 vote getter at any position this year.
None whatsoever. Nor should they.
Yeah, nor should any of them. I'm actually proud of you, San Francisco, and all the fans for not voting the Giants in. They didn't deserve it. Will Smith deserves it. He'll get named by a manager, and that's all that can happen. Pablo, we thought maybe could deserve it, but since Bochy's not going, I don't see it happening. Yeah. So, good on the Giants fans for not forcing their players into that. Because, Posey we still think is one of the top catchers in the National League, but he's just not having an all-star worthy season.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix of people who made it past the primary. Basically, the people voted for the top 3 vote getters at every position, and 9 in the outfielders make it past the primaries into the final voting. So, and then of course, like you said, managers choose the pitching staff and reserves and etc. So. Pretty good list. I don't think there was any crazy surprises, but in the designated hitter category, of course, AL only, Hunter Pence did make it past the primary, which is pretty cool, along with Nelson Cruz and JD Martinez. Now, unfortunately, his injury is putting a little bit of a wrench into the gears of maybe making the team. He could always be named as a reserve or something by a manager for an injured player. Hopefully I actually don't know the timetable of his return, but I think he's going to be back before the All-Star break. It would be nice to see him there because he's having one hell of a year, and I'm just so happy to see him succeed like this.
Yeah, JD Martinez, I think, will be his toughest competition in just getting the nod. Yeah. Even if he's hurt, I'd love to see him get the nod, even if he can't play. A groin's nothing to joke with. So, yeah. We root for him every day. Yeah, we root for him every day in this house. So I know when every Rangers game is on, they're in the playoff hunt over in the American League. So they're my American League team, along with probably the Twins if they go get Bumgarner. Because let's be honest, any team that trades for Bumgarner is going to become our team. So, if it's the Twins, I'll be happy with that. It's nice to root for a team that's out of the way and can't affect long-term things.
Yeah. So you have a bit of a minor league report here. In fact, there are a couple things I wanted to talk about, but I actually didn't pull up the stats. But anyway, it was about Ramos and Bart and what's been happening down in the Arizona Fall League, actually.
Well, yeah, I saw Luciano has been tearing it up in the Fall League for one of the two teams there. I was just reading about that. Where is it? Yeah, look at that. He went 0 for 8 in his first 2 games, and he's 10 of his last 18. Home runs, walked twice, doubled twice for the Giants Arizona team. Bart and Ramos, I know Ramos made the All-Star team is that trip? No, that's single A. Single A San Jose in the Cal League. That's the difference. There it is. Right. I focused on, I noticed Chris Shaw, you remember, he played some games with the Major League Club last year, and then he got demoted all the way to Double-A to start the season, and he got called up to Triple-A Sacramento 18 games ago, and he's hitting .275 with 4 homers and 4 doubles with Sacramento, and he's actually improved his walk rate in the same time. So Shaw could be another guy who gets a look in the outfield if they do move some people around, a la Kevin Pillar. Mm-hmm. And then, have you ever heard of Zach Green before?
I've only heard the name. I have not paid attention to him whatsoever.
Yeah, he's hitting .308 with 14 bombs and 43 games for Sacramento. He plays both corner infield spots. He's a right-handed hitter and thrower. And I'd never heard of him before. Apparently he'd been in somebody else's system for the last few years. Where is it? Lehigh Valley, the Philly system for the last few years. And the Giants picked him up somehow, and he's hitting well so far in Sacramento. So there's a little more depth on the corners should the Giants be looking to trade Brandon Belt or Evan Longoria. Because I feel like now we're in that time frame where the Giants might start making moves. So it's kind of good to look at the guys who might have to step in and who might be riding out the season as San Francisco Giants, even though they might not be Giants from, in next year and the year after that. But we're going to definitely have some guys that we never heard of riding out the season for this team.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, he has, speaking of Zach Green, he has 8 seasons in the minors. So, again, no spring chicken. He's 25 years old. He has over 2,000 at-bats in the minor leagues. And he's hitting .263 with 80 home runs, 316 RBI. But, yeah, he spent two seasons in rookie ball, 3 seasons in A+, 2 in Double-A, and then now 2 seasons in Triple-A, in which he's played 80 games, hitting .280. So that ain't too bad. With 17 home runs and 56 RBI.
Like Yaztremski, that these are the guys they seem to be stockpiling. And I think that's how Zaidi found a guy like Muncy. These are those kind of guys that he's been tabbing to try to – because Muncy's not young. I think he's in his late 20s. He was not like some straight rookie. So I think that this falls in line, Zach Green, with a lot of the moves Zaidi's making. These are the types of things he did to help build the farm system like he's doing right now.
Yeah, one of the reasons why he's been around for so long but is still only 25 is that he was drafted out of high school and did actually go right into the minor leagues. So he didn't opt for college, so that's why he's been there for so long. Drafted in 2012 in the 3rd round by the Phillies in the amateur league. So from Jesuit High School in Sacramento. Pretty cool. All right. Well,
wow. So he's playing at home. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he's a California kid. So hopefully he didn't grow up a Dodgers fan, but we'll see. All right, so you got a little bit of this week in Giants history as well.
Yes, it'll be back. My arm has been out of a sling for 4 days now, and I feel more comfortable writing. And I'll be honest, I took Chad's Hawaiian vacation to be a good time to take some time to myself as well. So this 2 weeks in
Backyard
Giants
Mai Tais, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what it's been. The pool was set up, but it's a kiddie pool, so only our feet went in it. We're redneck down here. This week in Giants history, I'm going back to 2010. June is a bad month for these things, and I'm going back to this particular game in 2010. On June 25th, 2010, the Giants beat the Red Sox 5-4, and that was at Oracle, then AT&T Park, and they immediately lost 7 straight after that. They had also lost 2 straight at Houston right before that. So the Giants were mired in a losing 9 of 10. And after losing those 7 straight, they were as close to 500 as they would be all year. And It's funny. My wife has a saying when we're watching games sometimes, because when her Cubs blow one, she'll be like, "That'll be the game that'll lose the division for us," or when they pull one out, that's the game that wins the division for us. And it just struck me as the Giants won one of those games against the Red Sox, and with all sorts of Giants Red Sox connections with Yaz and Little Yaz. I figured I'd find something fun to look at. Is this game, as I go through it, it'll bring back a lot of the great names from 2010 and give us a chance to look back on 2010 and relive that a little bit, because it's kind of surprising how close the Giants were on teetering on falling apart before they really got it together in 2010 and won that first championship. And it was just such a different team than the 12 and 14 teams. So it's gonna be fun to look back. There's some names that we'll see: Brian Wilson, Sergio Romo, in the game, Ramiro Ramirez, who they I think that was his name, who they traded for with Boston later in the season, pitched against the Giants in that game. So it's just, a fun game to look back on from 2010, and a chance to look back at 2010 one time before there's like 4 no-hitters in the month of July.
It's funny that you mentioned it, because I do remember that season. The Giants started that particular season off very well, and it looked like they were going to make a run in the postseason. And I remember a point in the season, this is probably the point, in which they lost a bunch of games and didn't fall out of contention, but fell out of first place and were, nearing 500. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, we're back to the old Giants again. Never mind.
Right.
I do recall going through those emotions, because, going through basically everything since 2002, and then 2003 making the postseason but losing to the Marlins in dramatic fashion, and then just not really sniffing anything for so many years. It was kind of like the hopes were up, and then they were kind of dashed. That said, it did take an epic fall-on-your-face moment by your San Diego Padres for them to catch them in that last series. But nonetheless, it did happen, and of course spurned this incredible 3-5 stretch. But yeah, it's funny how baseball does change relatively quickly when you look back, from a day-to-day kind of thing. It doesn't feel quick, but when you look back, my God, that was 9 years ago already. It goes by pretty fast.
Yeah, they put themselves at 40-32 with this victory over Boston I'm going to write about. And then after losing 7 straight, they were 40-39. And that was like the closest they had. And then they won a game at Colorado. And then even though they lost another game, they won a game at Milwaukee. And they started winning again, because they did start out like gangbusters. This team was this was another thing, is they started out 7-2. And then they fell to like 9-7, 10-7. They kind of evened out for a little bit. And so that was that moment. Imagine had they had like a 10-game losing streak in the middle of the season. That 2010 team might not have put it together. It's just one of those random victories on a Friday night that you have no idea affects the outcome of everything. And thankfully, the Padres didn't run away with it, because the Giants were only 6.5 games back by the time they lost their 7th straight. Mm-hmm. So had the Padres run away with it, they could have absolutely been buried. But the Giants put together winning 5 of their next 6, and they climbed back in 5 games, 4 games, 3 games, slowly over the next months. Right. Padres. I still can't believe. I still can't believe. I look at this.
What, they lost 10 in a row or whatever it was at the end of the season?
Yeah. The Giants were 6.5 back on August 25th, and suddenly they were tied for first place on September 10th. Like, how the fuck did that happen? That was 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Padres
the Giants
just shit the bed.
Yeah, the Giants only went like 6-4, like 8-5 over this stretch. It wasn't like they went off. Like, still blows my mind that 20 team won a World Series, and I'm so grateful they did. But like, how did those guys do that?
Stay classy, San Diego. Exactly. Yeah, you say 6.5, because I do remember that's the number they came back from. I had to participate in some social media today, which I generally don't, other than posting our episodes and articles and whatever on these Giants fan book pages and Facebook pages and stuff. I hate to say it, there's just a lot of dumb Giants fans out there, just like with every team, but it's kind of embarrassing sometimes when you see some of these posts, just the grammar and the spelling and the lack of baseball IQ. But I did see one today I had to jump in on, and they were like, oh my gosh, I just checked the standings. We're only 6.5 back of the wild card. What? I was like, okay, we have this fallible logic once again.
What?
So I kind of had to lay out how, yes, they're only 6.5 back of the wild card, there are 8 teams ahead of them for that last wild card spot. So you're not just catching 1 or 2 teams. You're not just having to leapfrog over 2 or 3 teams. You literally not only have to erase that 6.5 game deficit from that second wild card spot, but then you have to ensure that you have not only catch, but surpass all of the other 7 teams in between. That means you have to have a better record than all 8 teams plus what you're catching up. That's not going to happen. That's more than half of the National League. More than half of the National League is not going to play under 500 ball the rest of the way. Every single one of those teams. So my point was, yeah, the Giants could catch that one team. They can't expect all the teams in between them to all pull a Padres at the end of the year and lose 10 in a row. Because, I don't know, they play each other. It evens out. So unless the Giants play literally like 700 ball the rest of the way, mathematically, of course, it's possible. But realistically, you have to look at the number of teams between you and the last spot. You cannot have any expectation to have a better record than all 8 teams. That's just not going to happen. So I think people look at that number and go, 6.5? Well, that's doable. Well, yeah, it is doable, but not when you have 8 teams in the mix. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, patience is not a virtue amongst some fans.
Yeah, it's kind of like, do you understand this? It's not impossible, so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, no, the Giants aren't winning.
This team is not equipped to do anything like this.
No, they're not. That's the other thing. Sometimes when teams you want to see them catch a run and go to the playoffs, they do it and then they fall flat on their face in the playoffs. And it's like, I almost would have rather they didn't embarrass themselves in the playoffs after catching like 97. Like, what the hell, man? Like, what a great run 97 was. Brian Johnson, all of that. Yeah. Right, and then they go and they fall flat on their face in the playoffs. I mean, like what the hell, man? What are you doing? I almost would have rather they didn't have that run, and maybe the Brian Johnson moment had been something, but they lost on the last day of the season, so we didn't have to remember that the Giants lost to the Marlins, the eventual World Series champion Marlins.
Marlins, I know, crazy. All right, well, that's pretty good. Walk down memory lane. But coming up for the Giants, they now have a 7-game homestand against the Rockies for 3 and then Arizona for 4 before going back on the road. And then they come back home right before the All-Star break. So I'm really, really trying to get to a game. I almost had it work out where I could have gone tonight. But I will admit to my inner child, I kind of didn't want to go anyway because Drew Pomeranz was pitching.
Oh my God, I was going to call you on it. I'm so glad you admitted it. I was totally going to be like, no, you just didn't want to see Pomeranz pitch. I really was. That's hilarious.
It was yesterday morning when I was doing some chores and I was like, wow, they're coming back home, aren't they? God, I haven't been to a game yet. And Trish was like, yeah, you should go to a game. I looked at the schedule and I was like, ooh, I work from home on Mondays. Ooh, I could go to tomorrow night's game. And then I was like, well, it's 24 hours. I don't know if they're going to approve it in time. I've had this problem before where I don't get the approval till like 4 in the afternoon. Then I would always have to drive up there. And I'm kind of debating with all this stuff before I put in the request. And then I was like, who's pitching? And I was like, Pomeranz? Screw it. I'll go to another game.
Yep. You should look at something like an Anderson start or something like that.
Anderson
or get a chance to see Bumgarner. Right.
Yeah,
those would be my two.
Well, and especially, I hate to say this, and we didn't even dwell on this fact. Bumgarner, I know they were saying, oh, last start in LA could have been his last start. I didn't think a trade was going to be in the next week. But
no.
I mean, unless no one is going to answer Zaidi's call for what they want. And I hope Zaidi doesn't sell Bumgarner for some lint, because that's going to really tick me off. But other than that, I really do expect him to be traded. And so, yeah, if he is, then he may have 1 or 2 starts left in a Giants uniform, and that's it. So, it would be nice to go, but I'd have to try and line that up. It's going to be hard.
You could unwittingly be at Bumgarner's final start as a Giant. You have no idea because of that reason. Yeah, it could happen any day.
It's a good reason to look at that. So, all right, well, that'll do it for episode 170 of the TortureCast. Hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Find us over there. Check out our website at torturecast.com where we post all of our episodes. Of course, you can find it anywhere because you're listening to it, so you know where it is at. And you can follow us individually at 2 Out Hits for Eric. That's with the number 2. Myself at ChadK21. All right, any initial thoughts of wisdom to part with our audience with?
No, not a pearl to be found.
Not a pearl to be had.
No.
I understand. I'm still on Maui time, man. I need a Mai Tai. It's time.
Hey, we got 7 games. The Giants have 7 games left in June, and they have a chance to go 500. So they need to go 4-3, or at least 3-4 this week to go 500 in the month of June. So I'm looking for small victories right now.
Absolutely, and they're coming home. I know the record isn't good at home, but you got to play better at home. So hopefully they can get a little home cooking, maybe go 4-3 on this homestand, finish the month actually a little above 500, and that would be fantastic. So, well, that'll do it for Eric. This is Chad signing off, and we'll see you next time for episode 171. Until then, ba-boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.